Welcome to Life Lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we're continuing with the 11th Canto of the Bhagavatam. Specifically, we are beginning Chapter 2 and a wonderful account of the yogendras. The yogendras are 9 kings of yoga, and they meet with a king named Nimi, and they have a most wonderful discussion that we will be discussing over the coming classes. Let me begin by chanting some verses to invoke the auspiciousness of the Bhagavatam, as well as give time to our participants to arrive. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 3. Yasvanubhavam akila shruti saramekam adyatmadipam atita satam tamundam samsarinam karuna yaha purana guhyam tam vyasa sunam upayami guru muninam. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyas, who out of his great compassion for those great materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of the material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement of the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally assimilated it by experience. Chapter 2, verse 4. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Text 17. Shridvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Suhrit Satam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. We'll chant one more. Chapter 2, text 18. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Sri Gandharvika, my wife, is with us. Welcome, joining us from New York City. We have Shama Manjari with us from South Africa. Thank you for being here. Shama Manjari says, Hare Krishna, Sri Prahlada Prabhuji. Biren joins us. Biren says, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Welcome, Biren. Kirtina is with us from Norway. Thank you for joining. And Nikunja joins us from Auckland, New Zealand. Welcome. On Instagram, we have some participants as well. Rohan Hambia and Koshik Banerjee. Lissafum 06. We have Vikram. Vikram Aditya joining us from Govardhan. Welcome, Vikram. Great to see you. It's been a while since we've had any contact. Satya is here. We have Ray Brum. We have Haran Manohar, Alam Bonita, Amajanu, and there's Vikram sharing some gratitude. welcome to all of you. Merry Manju 2021. Thank you for joining. Today we are discussing the 11th Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 2, the first verses, the first part. So we'll be discussing verses 1 through to 27. And our focus is on this conversation. Today it's an introduction to this conversation between the 9 yogendras, the 9 kings of yoga, and King Nibi, Maharaj Nibi. And we'll learn something about how to associate with devotees. I've had a realization this past years that the way to associate with senior devotees is to ask questions. So we can go to them and they may ask questions of us, and that's nice. That's their showing their kindness to us. They'll ask, how are you? They'll ask what we've been doing, and we'll give some responses. And so we can associate and have the benefit of their association in that way. Or we can think in advance, what question can I ask of Prabhuji? What question can I ask of Maharaj or Prabhu or Mataji to really get the benefit of those moments that we have in the sadhu's association. So you can keep that in mind as we discuss this section of the Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, verses 1 to 27. We'll discuss it in 3 sections. One is Vasudeva's question, verses 1 to 9. Second section is the history of the Nava Yogendras, verses 10 to 23. And then their arrival at King Nibi's court, verses 24 to 27. So we begin with Vasudeva's question. Vasudeva is the father of Krishna, and this second chapter of the 11th canto begins by telling us how Narada Muni was staying almost exclusively in Dwarka. Narada Muni always travels. He doesn't stay in any place longer than a few days. He was cursed by Prajapati Daksha. But it appears that the curse of Daksha doesn't hold sway in the holy realm of Dwarka, because Narada Muni has chosen to locate himself there. Why? Because Krishna is there performing his pastimes. And Narada Muni recognizes that Krishna's pastimes are coming to a close, and he recognizes that Krishna is present, will be present on earth for just a short while longer. And so he's decided to locate himself in Dwarka to have Krishna's holy association. Excuse me. Now, just before we continue, the previous class we were discussing the curse of the Yarus, how the boys had dressed themselves up, dressed Samba up as a girl, and asked the sages, will it be a boy or a girl? What baby will our friend have? And the sages cursed that she'll give birth to an iron club, because they knew that the boys were mocking them. That story's been left now, and we won't encounter that story. We won't come back to that story until the end of the 11th canto. So it's kind of a bookend. We had the beginning of the story where the boys are cursed and there's the iron club, and then we'll get the end of the story at the end of this canto. But we are still in Dwarka. We are at the place of Vasudeva, because Narada Muni, he visits Vasudeva. He wants to have Krishna's association, and so he visits Vasudeva's house. And while he's there, he's nicely received and honored by Vasudeva. And Vasudeva asks a question. He says, long ago in my previous life, I worshipped Vishnu for getting a child in this world. I didn't ask for liberation. I rather asked for a child. He says, but maybe now I should be thinking about liberation. So he's also thinking Krishna's winding up his pastime. So he's thinking, what comes next for me? He says, please instruct me, therefore, how we can achieve the perfection of life, how we can be liberated from material existence. which is full of danger and frightens us at every step. So there's the example of taking advantage of the sadhu's association by asking questions. Narada Muni replies. He says, this question is beneficial for the entire universe. That's how Sukadev responded initially to Parikshit Maharaj's question. What is the duty of one who is about to die? Those who live and those who die. Sukadeva Goswami said, your question is glorious because it benefits not just you, but all people. And so similarly, Narada Muni praises Vasudev's question, and he said, this question was previously discussed, or relevant to this question is the discussion, the conversation between the sons of Rishabdev, that's the Nava-yogendras, and the king of Videha, that is King Nimi. And so Narada Muni is going to tell us about that conversation, but we can pause here and just reflect a little. That we can reflect on Vasudev's inquiry to Narada Muni, that in our pursuit of life's goal, we can pursue so many things, but Vasudev is telling us that ultimately we should be pursuing not temporary gains, but the path of Bhagavat Bhakti, the path of bhagavata-dharma, because the temporary pursuits, they will be taken from us. And so Vasudev's inquiry of Narada Muni about the path of Bhagavat Vidhi, that is the ultimate purpose of life, and seeking the knowledge of that path from sadhus, and those who know the path, those who are on the path. They can guide us with their insights, with their realizations. They can inspire us to embark on that journey, because in our conditioned state, we may be aware of the path even, we may have even started on the path, but we are still attached to the things along the way, the glaring distractions that may lead us from the path. And so it's helpful to inquire of the sadhus who are making steady progress. Tell me, what you unmute? Okay, are we back? Somehow I touched the button. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Seems I accidentally muted. Okay, we go to our second topic, the history of the Nava-yogendras. Narada Muni tells Vasudeva, and he tells all of us, that that Swayambhuva Manu had a son named Priyavrata, who had a son named Agnidra, and from him there was Nabi. And then, most importantly, for our discussion today, his son was Rishabdev. So Priyavrata Maharaj, he's described in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, and one of the most important of his descendants is Rishabdev. Rishabdev is an incarnation of Vishnu, an incarnation of Krishna. He appears in the world to teach Dharma, and very interestingly, Rishabdev had 100 sons, and he instructed them in devotional service. And among these 100 sons, the eldest was Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj was completely devoted to Krishna, to Lord Narayan, and he was very powerful, he was very influential, and in fact, the world came to be known after him as Bharata-varsha. When it came time for the end of his rule, then he very easily rejected material life, and he went to, I think he went to Haridwar to practice devotional service. He was worshipping the Shalagram Shila, but then we know he became distracted by the deer. And so we learn about his 3 consecutive lives there in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. That's Bharat Maharaj. Now he has other brothers. 9 of Rishabdev's sons, they ruled other parts of the world. So Bharata-varsha is one of the main islands of the Bhumandala, but there are other varshas as well. And so Rishabdev's other sons, they ruled those other 8 islands. Then there were the 81 other sons who became first-class Brahmins, and they performed Karmakanda Vedic sacrifices. And then there's 9 remaining sons who became Paramahamsas. They became ascetics, and they learned the science of transcendence, and they wandered the world dressed only by the directions, and they were called the Nava Yogendra, the 9 Yoga Indra. Yoga means the science of yoga, the science of linking with the Supreme, and Indra means king. So these are the 9 kings of yoga. Their names are Kavi, Havir, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayana, Avihotra, Drumila, Chamasa, and Karambhajana. They wandered the earth, they saw the entire universe as consisting of the gross and subtle elements that are all Krishna's energy, and so they saw everything as part and parcel of Krishna. So we can pause here and just reflect on this exalted lineage of Priyavrata Maharaj that we've already learned about from the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. It's nice to encounter them again here in the 11th. And specifically, we go from Priyavrata to his next most important son, that is Rishabdev, and then Bharat Maharaj, and then these Nava-yogendras. And it's interesting, one thing we can note here is how the same father, the same parents, father and mother, they have sons who are Brahmanas, who are Paramahansas, who are Kshatriya kings as well. And this refutes the idea that the Varna or the Varna of the parents fixes the Varna of their children. Here we have an example where the parents' Varna is different in many instances from the Varna of their children. We have also a nice example in how they're serving in different ways. Bharat Maharaj as a ruler, the Nava-yogendras as transcendentalists, others as Brahmanas, showing us there's not one way to serve Krishna, to please Krishna, but we can serve in different ways. And then from the lineage as a whole, we learn something wonderful. This is a family that is very much fixed in devotion, ruling as kings or teaching as Brahmanas, performing sacrifice, or as yogis, whatever the case may be, but they are fixed in transcendence. And so they are an exalted family described in the Bhagavatam, a family lineage that we can learn from. Let's finally now go to our 3rd section with the arrival of the Nava-yogendras in the court of King Nibi. Sukadeva Goswami says, once the Nava-yogendras arrived at the court of King Nibi, the king of Videha, at the time of the performance of a great sacrifice. And when they arrived, everyone stood up. Sukadeva Goswami says, even the fire stood up to show respect. The king stood up, the ruler of Videha, King Nimi, he stood up. The Brahmanas all stood up. The fire also stood up to receive these great devotees. And with great humility, the king asked questions of the sages. We are going to follow these questions in our subsequent discussions. So he asks 9 questions. Why? Because there are 9 yogendras. And so from each yogendra, he takes the opportunity to ask a question. And it's a most wonderful section of the Bhagavatam. The questions are profound, the answers are profound, and they relate to, I'll give you the topics. Question number 1 is about bhakti. Question 2 about bhakta, the devotee. We'll learn about different types of devotees. Question 3 is about Maya. Question 4 is about mukti or liberation. Question 5 is about Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. Question 6 is about Karma Yoga. Question 7 is about Krishna's incarnations. Question 8 is about the non-devotee, the abhakta. And then question 9 about the yugas and the different avatars that appear in the different ages. And it's in that section that we also hear about Krishna Varnam. We get that verse that is used to describe the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. So really wonderful discussion. This section of the Bhagavatam, it's chapters 2 to 9 of the 11th canto. It could be a book in its own right. The discussion is most profound and wonderful. And so that'll be our focus for the coming weeks or maybe coming months. We'll see how we go through. So overall, this section is showing us about humility and reverence in seeking wisdom. This discussion today, whether it's Vasudeva inquiring of Narada Muni or King Nimi inquiring of the Nava Yogendras, we learn how to associate with sadhus, how to associate with senior devotees, and that is by asking questions. So let's conclude then with a prayer. Beloved Krishna, leaving aside fleeting goals, guide us on the eternal path of bhagavata-dharma. As Vasudeva sought guidance from Narada, may we seek divine wisdom and engage in sacred discourse with exalted Vaishnavas, transcending the material realm to find lasting peace and spiritual fulfillment in your service. O Lord, let the lineage of Rishabdev inspire us with its profound spiritual discipline and devotion. As Bharata renounced the world for your worship, and the Navayogendras saw the universe as your divine manifestation, help us transcend our material pursuits. May we embrace spiritual practices and recognize your presence in every aspect of existence. With humility and reverence, like King Nimi before the Navayogendras, may we honor the wise and seek their knowledge. Teach us, Krishna, that true wisdom and spiritual insight comes from a humble heart and a sincere quest for understanding. So let me acknowledge some of you who joined after I started speaking. And then we can also, in the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, you can put those in the chat. And I do apologize for that little hiccup halfway through when my sound dropped. So let's see, we have joining us from Ukraine. It was, I believe, Goranitai Das. Thank you for being here to remind us of our God brothers and God sisters in Ukraine and to keep them in our prayers and in our heart. Everyone, please do that. Don't forget those devotees serving under very difficult conditions. Rasa Stali's with us, sending a flower offering, but I can't show it for some reason. It won't let me highlight that. Shama Manjari says yes. Yes, I guess for yes, I'm back after That's what Achyutananda also says. We lost him. And then Achyutananda says, it's back. Apologies once again. But happy to see you are with us, Achyutananda. Thank you for joining. And then Gaurachandraji, with us from Christchurch, says, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavats. Welcome, Gaurachandra. Let's just check in here on Instagram. We have Carol, we have Lisa, we have Wealth by Nikhil, Goranga, Harinam Bed, and Fit Active. Oh, we have Bhagavatam. Like that name. Yonam, Vidit, Karen. I'm just going to scroll through to see if there are any questions or comments. Bhubi Kashyap says, Radhe Radhe Prabhuji. Welcome, Bhubi Kashyap. Hamid says, hi, how are you, boss? I'm well, thank you, Hamid. Thanks for joining. Okay, so, and then Lisa says, thank you. You're welcome, Lisa. Wealth by Nikhil says, Hare Krishna. Thanks, Wealth by Nikhil. Great to have you all joining. So we've been discussing Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 2nd chapter, the Nava-yogendras, and their discussion with King Nimi. I believe King Nimi, so he's the king of Videha, and that's where the family that Sita Devi is born into. So that's also just a nice little addition. But in the coming days and weeks, we'll have further opportunity to discuss these great souls and their conversation. It's one of I have many favorite sections of the Bhagavatam. This is one of them, the discussion with the Nava-yogendras. And once we had a senior devotee visit Sydney, Australia, and I was asked to suggest a section of the Bhagavatam for that devotee to discuss, and I suggested this section. And so we had a couple of weeks discussing this section of the Bhagavatam, these 9 questions from King Nimi, and the profound responses of the Nava-yogendras. All right, so we will conclude there for now. Let me say that our next class on Monday in some part of the world and Tuesday in Australia, New Zealand, it's going to be short. Even today's class is a bit short. That class will be particularly short because I have another engagement halfway through our usual time. But we can meet just for a short class, and we'll begin with the first question, which is about bhakti. So we'll conclude here. May you deepen in your taste for hearing about Krishna from the Srimad Bhagavatam. May you deepen in your taste for chanting the holy name with attention. May you deepen your appreciation for the holy Nam, Sri Vrindavan Nam, Mayapur Nam, and anywhere where Krishna is served. So we have temples all over the world. Those are also holy Nams. May we all deepen in our appreciation for Krishna appearing to us in the form of the deity. Today I was having a conversation with a devotee who was telling me about the first time he ever saw a deity and the profound impact that had on him. All of these practices, they are supported by association with devotees, and so may we deepen our love and friendship and association with Vaishnavas, our friendships with peers, our love and compassion and support for those that are junior, and then our faithful service and submissive inquiry of those who are senior. And through these practices of bhakti, may our hearts soften with compassion, that we are moved to share the treasures of bhakti with others. So we'll conclude here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.